Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Defiance, watching the stars thin out ahead of them. They had been traveling for 3 weeks beyond the last human colony, pushing deeper into unexplored space than any ship had gone before. The galaxy's edge was supposed to be empty, a void where stars became scarce and space grew cold. But something was wrong. "Captain, we're picking up debris fields," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from the sensor station. His voice carried an edge of concern that made Sarah's stomach tighten. Multiple ships, different designs. Some of the signatures match vessels that went missing over the past 5 years. Sarah moved to his station, studying the holographic display that showed scattered wreckage floating in the darkness. The debris wasn't random space junk. These were the remains of exploration ships, trading vessels, and scientific expeditions that had simply vanished without sending distress calls. "Any signs of what destroyed them?" she asked. Rodriguez shook his head. "That's the strange part, Captain. The damage patterns don't match any known weapons. Some ships look like they were torn apart from the inside. Others appear to have been crushed by immense pressure, and a few show signs of molecular disintegration." Dr. Marcus Webb, the ship's chief scientist, approached from his research station. His weathered face showed the excitement of discovery mixed with deep worry. "Captain, I've been analyzing the stellar cartography data. We're approaching what appears to be an artificial boundary. The stars don't just thin out naturally here. Something is preventing their formation in a perfect sphere around this region of space." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. In her 15 years of deep space exploration, she had seen many strange phenomena, but nothing like this. The edge of human space was supposed to be a gradual transition into empty void, not a wall where ships disappeared and stars refused to form. "Show me the boundary on the main screen," she ordered. The view screen flickered to life, displaying a 3-dimensional map of local space. A perfect sphere of darkness stretched before them, devoid of stars, planets, or any cosmic bodies. The boundary was so precise it looked artificial, as if someone had carved out a section of the galaxy and left nothing but empty space. "How large is this void?" Sarah asked. "Approximately 200 light-years in diameter," Webb replied. "But here's what's really disturbing. According to our deep space scanners, there should be gravitational signatures from stars and planets in that region. The gravity is there, but the matter creating it is invisible to all our sensors." Ensign Kim Park, the communications officer, suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, I'm detecting a faint transmission. It's coming from inside the void, but it's not using any known communication protocol. The signal is old. Very old." "How old?" Sarah demanded. "Based on the decay patterns and signal degradation, I'd estimate at least 10,000 years. Maybe older." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had only been exploring space for a few centuries. Any signal that old would predate human civilization by millennia. Sarah stared at the boundary ahead, knowing that every instinct told her to turn around and report their findings to Earth Command. But the mystery called to her. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. They're ordering all ships to avoid this sector. Apparently 3 more vessels have gone missing in the past week." Sarah clenched her fists. The easy choice was to obey orders, retreat to safe space, and let someone else solve this mystery. But the scattered debris of those lost ships haunted her. Somewhere in that impossible void, answers waited. Perhaps even survivors. "Plot a course to the boundary," she commanded. "But keep us well outside the sphere. I want to study this phenomenon before we make any decisions about proceeding." As the Defiance approached the edge of the mysterious void, the crew worked frantically to gather data. The closer they got, the stranger things became. Space itself seemed different here, as if the laws of physics operated under different rules. Instruments gave contradictory readings, and several crew members reported feeling dizzy and disoriented. "Captain," Webb called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures just beyond the boundary. Whatever's in there, it's not dead space. Something enormous is active inside that void." Sarah stared into the perfect darkness ahead, where stars should have shone but didn't, where ships disappeared without trace, and where ancient signals whispered secrets from the dawn of galactic civilization. The edge of human space had revealed itself to be something far more significant than anyone had imagined. "I'll stop," she ordered. "Maintain position. I need to think about this." But even as she spoke, Sarah knew they couldn't turn back. Not when humanity's expansion into the galaxy had hit an invisible wall, and not when the answer to one of the universe's greatest mysteries lay just ahead in the darkness. The Defiance had been built for exploration, and Captain Sarah Chen had never backed down from the unknown. The void waited, patient and eternal, keeping its secrets while more ships prepared to challenge its boundaries. Deep in that artificial darkness, something ancient stirred, aware that humanity had finally found the edge of their small corner of the galaxy and stood poised to discover what lay beyond. The decision haunted Captain Chen through the night cycle, but by morning she had made up her mind. The Defiance would cross the boundary. She called her senior staff to the conference room, knowing that what she was about to propose went against direct orders from Earth Command. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, studying the faces of her crew, "we have a choice. We can retreat and let this mystery consume more ships, or we can find out what's really happening here." Dr. Webb leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "Captain, the energy readings from beyond the boundary are unlike anything in our databases. If we could study the source, we might unlock technologies that could advance human civilization by centuries." Lieutenant Rodriguez shook his head. "With respect, Doctor, we've lost contact with every ship that crossed that line. Our orders are clear. We should return to base and let Command send a full fleet. By the time a fleet arrives, more ships will have disappeared," Sarah replied. "We're here now. We have the best crew and equipment humanity can provide. If anyone can survive crossing that boundary and return with answers, it's us." Chief Engineer Torres spoke up from her position at the end of the table. "Captain, I've been analyzing the debris fields we passed. The ships weren't destroyed by weapons or natural phenomena. They were transformed. Their molecular structure was altered at the quantum level. Whatever did that operates on principles we don't understand." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just facing unknown technology, but something that could rewrite the fundamental nature of matter itself. "I've modified our shields based on the debris analysis," Torres continued. "I can't guarantee they'll protect us, but they might give us a few minutes to gather data if things go wrong." Ensign Park raised her hand hesitantly. "Captain, that ancient signal is getting stronger. I've been working on decoding it, and I think it might be a warning. The mathematical pattern suggests it's trying to communicate danger." Sarah stood and moved to the viewport, staring out at the perfect darkness that marked the boundary. A warning from whom? And why is it 10,000 years old? "Maybe," Dr. Webb said slowly, "because whatever created this boundary has been here for 10,000 years, waiting." The word waiting hung in the air like a physical presence. Sarah turned back to her crew, seeing fear mixed with determination in their eyes. These were the best humanity had to offer, volunteers who had signed up for deep space exploration knowing they might never return home. "I'm not ordering anyone to cross that boundary," she said firmly. "This is beyond our mission parameters. Anyone who wants to transfer to the escape pods and return to the nearest colony has that right." Not a single person moved. Chief Torres actually smiled. "Captain, you're stuck with us. Besides, if we're about to make first contact with an ancient alien civilization, I want to be there to see it." Sarah felt a surge of pride in her crew. "Then we go in together, but we go prepared." Over the next 6 hours, the crew worked to modify the ship's systems. Torres reinforced the shields and installed backup power cells that could function independently if the main systems failed. Dr. Webb programmed the sensors to record everything, even if the crew didn't survive to analyze the data. Rodriguez armed every weapon system they had, though they all suspected conventional weapons would be useless against whatever lay ahead. Ensign Park made the most disturbing discovery. "Captain, I've partially decoded the ancient signal. It's not just a warning, it's a countdown. And according to my calculations, it reaches 0 in approximately 72 hours. "A countdown to what?" Sarah asked. "Unknown. But the signal originated from deep inside the void. Whatever's been waiting there for 10,000 years, it's about to do something. Sarah felt the weight of command pressing down on her. They could retreat and warn Earth, but even faster-than-light communication would take weeks to reach command, and months for a response fleet to arrive. If the countdown meant what she feared it might, humanity could face a threat they weren't prepared for. "We cross the boundary in 2 hours," she announced. "All departments, final preparations, and record everything. If we don't make it back, maybe our data will help the next crew." As the crew dispersed to their stations, Sarah remained in the conference room staring at the tactical display. The perfect sphere of darkness seemed to pulse with hidden energy, as if it were alive and aware of their intentions. Dr. Webb lingered after the others left. "Captain, there's something else. The gravitational readings inside the void don't match natural stellar formations. If I didn't know better, I'd say there's a megastructure in there, something the size of a solar system. Built by whom? That's what we're about to find out." 2 hours later, the Defiance approached the boundary at quarter impulse, every sensor recording, every system primed for the unknown. The crew stood at their stations, silent and focused. "Boundary in 10 seconds, Rodriguez announced. Sarah gripped her command chair. "Whatever happens, remember we're representing all of humanity. Stay calm, stay alert, and stay alive." The ship crossed the invisible line, and reality twisted around them. The stars vanished completely, replaced by something that hurt to look at directly. Space itself seemed to bend and flow like liquid, and the ship's instruments screamed warnings as they encountered phenomena that had no names. "Status report," Sarah called out, fighting against the disorientation that threatened to overwhelm her. "Shields holding," Torres reported. "But they're adapting to energy patterns I can't identify. It's like space is trying to rewrite our ship's structure." "Captain," Park's voice was tight with fear and amazement. "The signal source is directly ahead. And it's big, really big." On the main screen, something impossible emerged from the shifting darkness. A structure so vast it defied comprehension, built from materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. It was clearly artificial, clearly ancient, and clearly waiting for them. Humanity had found the edge of their space and discovered they were not alone. The megastructure dwarfed anything in human imagination. It stretched across space like a massive ring, easily the diameter of Earth's orbit around the sun. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive, and the ancient signal was coming from its center. "My God," Dr. Webb whispered, his voice filled with awe. "It's a ring world. But the engineering required to build something like that, it's beyond our current understanding of physics." Captain Chen forced herself to focus despite the overwhelming sight. Scan for life signs, artificial intelligence, anything that might indicate who built this. "Multiple energy sources throughout the structure," Rodriguez reported. "Some sections appear to be inhabited, but the life signs are strange. They don't match any known biological patterns." The ship shuddered suddenly, and every screen on the bridge flickered. When the displays stabilized, new information appeared. Data streams in languages that had never been seen before, mathematical formulas that seemed to solve themselves, and star maps showing the galaxy from perspectives impossible for human technology to achieve. "Captain," Ensign Park's voice cracked with excitement. "Something is accessing our computers. But it's not hostile. It's teaching us." Dr. Webb frantically worked at his station, his eyes wide as he absorbed the incoming data. These mathematical proofs, these scientific theories, they're thousands of years ahead of human science. Whoever built this is sharing their knowledge with us. A new voice suddenly filled the bridge, speaking perfect English, despite having no possible way to know their language. The voice was ancient, tired, but unmistakably intelligent. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have been waiting for you to reach the boundary of your small territory." Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Defiance." "Who are you?" "We are the Watchers. We have guarded this galaxy for millennia, protecting the young species from threats they cannot comprehend. Your kind has grown faster than most. You reached our boundary in only 300,000 years since your species evolved consciousness." "The ships that disappeared," Sarah demanded. "What happened to them?" A pause filled the bridge, and when the voice returned, it carried deep sadness. They were transformed, elevated to join us in our eternal vigil. But the process was imperfect. We have been studying your species through them, learning how to properly communicate with humanity. Dr. Webb looked up from his console, his face pale. Captain, the data they're sharing, it's not just scientific knowledge. It's a warning. Something is coming to this galaxy, something that destroys everything in its path. The main screen shifted, showing images of distant galaxies. Beautiful spiral arms of stars suddenly went dark. Entire stellar regions consumed by something that moved between the galaxies like a cosmic plague. The images were horrifying in their scope and finality. The Devourers, the Watcher voice explained. They have consumed 17 galaxies over the past 1,000,000 years. They strip away all matter, all energy, leaving only empty space behind. They are coming here. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. When? Our calculations indicate they will reach the outer rim of this galaxy in approximately 50 of your years. We have been preparing for this war for millennia, but we cannot win alone. Chief Torres spoke up from her engineering station. Why are you telling us this? What can humanity possibly do against something that destroys entire galaxies? Your species possesses something unique, the Watcher replied. You call it creativity, adaptability, stubbornness. Most species reach a plateau in their development and remain there for millions of years. Humans continue to evolve, to grow, to refuse limitations. In 50 years, with our knowledge and your innovation, you might become the key to survival. The bridge fell silent as the enormity of the situation sank in. Humanity had reached the edge of their space only to discover they were facing a cosmic threat that could end all life in the galaxy. The ships that were transformed, Sarah asked quietly, are they still alive? In a manner of speaking, they became part of us, their consciousness merged with our collective knowledge. They volunteered once they understood the magnitude of what we face, but we have learned that forced transformation destroys what makes humanity special. On the screen, new images appeared. The missing ships, their crews alive but changed, working alongside the Watchers to prepare defenses that spanned star systems. They looked human but moved with purpose beyond individual desire, their eyes holding knowledge of cosmic scales. Captain Chen, the Watcher continued, you have a choice. Return to your people and prepare them for what is coming, or stay and begin the transformation process willingly. Either path serves the greater purpose. Dr. Webb stood up abruptly. There has to be another option. If our creativity is what makes us valuable, then forcing us to change defeats the purpose. Wise words, Dr. Webb. Yes, there is a third path, but it is the most dangerous. We can share our knowledge without transformation. Allow humanity to remain independent while preparing for the coming war. But this means your species will face the Devourers as yourselves, with all your limitations and mortality. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing determination on every face. These people had volunteered for deep space exploration, knowing the risks. Now they faced a choice that would determine the fate of their entire species. How long do we have to decide? She asked. The countdown your communications officer detected marks the arrival of our deep space sensor's final warning. In 70 hours, we will receive confirmation of the Devourer's approach vector. After that, all preparation must focus on defense rather than choice. Lieutenant Rodriguez checked his instruments. Captain, we're receiving priority transmissions from human space. More ships are approaching our position. Earth Command has sent a task force, Sarah realized. They're coming to investigate the disappearances. The Watcher's voice carried urgency. If they cross the boundary without understanding, we will be forced to transform them to prevent panic and chaos. Humanity must make this choice as a united species, not as scattered individuals. Sarah made her decision. We return to human space immediately. We'll intercept the task force and explain the situation. Humanity deserves to make this choice with full knowledge. You have 48 hours before our sensors confirm the threat, the Watcher warned. Choose wisely, Captain Chen. The survival of this galaxy may depend on your species' decision. As the Defiance turned back toward human space, carrying knowledge that would change everything, the ancient Ringworld continued its patient orbit in the void. The Watchers had waited 10,000 years for humanity to reach their boundary. Now they would discover if their patience had been rewarded with the galaxy's salvation or its doom. The Defiance raced through space at maximum speed, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. Captain Chen sat in her command chair, reviewing the massive data package the Watchers had uploaded to their computers. The scientific advances alone could revolutionize human civilization, but the images of consumed galaxies haunted her thoughts. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "we're detecting the Earth Command Task Force. 7 ships, including the heavy cruiser Sovereign. They'll reach the boundary in 18 hours. Sarah cursed under her breath. Admiral Morrison commanded the Sovereign, and he was known for his aggressive approach to unknown threats. If his task force crossed into Watcher space without understanding the situation, they could trigger exactly the kind of panic the Watchers wanted to avoid. "Open a priority channel to the Sovereign," she ordered. Full encryption, Admiral's eyes only. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Morrison's stern face. His expression grew even harder when he saw Sarah. "Captain Chen, you're in direct violation of orders. You were instructed to avoid this sector. Admiral, with respect, I need you to stop your advance immediately. The situation here is far more complex than anyone understood." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Captain, 7 ships have disappeared in this region. My orders are to investigate and eliminate any threat to human shipping lanes. Sir, the threat isn't what you think it is. We've made contact with an ancient alien civilization. They're not hostile, but they have information humanity needs to hear." The Admiral's laugh was bitter. "Aliens, Captain? After 15 years of exploration, we find them at the exact spot ships start disappearing? How convenient." Dr. Webb moved into the camera's view. "Admiral Morrison, I'm transmitting partial data files now. Please have your science team review them before you proceed." For several minutes, Morrison studied information off-screen, his expression gradually changing from skepticism to confusion, then to growing alarm. When he looked back at the camera, his face had gone pale. "Captain Chen, are you telling me this data is genuine? These mathematical proofs? These star charts showing galactic structures we've never observed?" "Every bit of it, sir. And there's more, much more. Admiral, we need to call a full session of Earth Command. Every colonial governor, every fleet commander, every scientific leader. What we've learned affects the survival of our entire species." Morrison was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. "Captain, I'm ordering you to rendezvous with my task force immediately. We'll escort you back to Earth Command headquarters. And Chen, if this proves to be some elaborate hoax, your career is over." "Understood, sir. But Admiral, you need to know that the beings we contacted can monitor our communications. They're aware of your approach." As if summoned by her words, the Watcher voice filled both ships' bridges simultaneously. Morrison's crew jumped in alarm as the ancient intelligence spoke directly to them. "Admiral Morrison of Earth Command, we greet you. We have been observing your species' military capabilities through your approach. Your weapons and tactics are impressive for such a young civilization." Morrison recovered quickly from his shock, his military training taking over. "Identify yourself. What are your intentions toward humanity?" "We are the Watchers, guardians of this galaxy for countless generations. Our intentions are to offer humanity a choice that will determine whether your species survives the next 50 years. Over the next hour, the Watchers shared condensed versions of their warning with the task force. The crews watched in horrified fascination as images of the Devourers played across their screens. Entire star systems consumed, planets stripped down to their cores, civilizations erased from existence. "Why should we believe any of this?" Admiral Morrison demanded. "You could have fabricated these images." The main screen on every ship suddenly showed a real-time view of a distant galaxy. As they watched, a section of spiral arms simply ceased to exist, its stars winking out one by one as something invisible swept through the region. "That galaxy will be completely consumed within 6 of your months," the Watcher explained. "The Devourers move systematically, leaving nothing behind. They have already identified this galaxy as their next target." Chief Torres had been studying the technical data throughout the conversation. "Captain, the energy readings from that distant galaxy match theoretical models for matter conversion on a stellar scale. Whatever's doing that has technology millions of years beyond anything we can imagine." Dr. Webb looked up from his analysis station. "But the defensive technologies the Watchers are offering, with human innovation in their knowledge base, we might actually have a chance." Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the discussion. "What exactly are you proposing?" The Watcher's response carried the weight of millennia. 3 options, Admiral Morrison. First, humanity can be transformed, joined to our collective consciousness. You would retain your memories and personalities but gain access to our accumulated knowledge. You would become part of our eternal vigil. Absolutely not, Morrison said immediately. Humanity will never surrender its independence. Second option, we share our knowledge freely, allowing humanity to remain unchanged. You would have access to technologies millions of years advanced, but you would face the devourers as mortal individuals with all your species' limitations. Captain Chen leaned forward. And the third option? The most dangerous path. Humanity and the Watchers work as equals, neither transformed nor completely separate. Your creativity combined with our knowledge, your adaptability merged with our experience. But this requires complete trust between our species. Admiral Morrison studied the tactical displays showing the approaching threat. If we choose the second or third option, what guarantee do we have that humanity can actually make a difference against these devourers? No guarantees, Admiral. But consider this. Every other species we have encountered followed predictable patterns of development. They reached certain technological plateaus and remained there. Humans have consistently exceeded every projection we have made about their advancement rate. The bridge of the Defiance fell silent as everyone processed the magnitude of the decision. They weren't just choosing humanity's response to an alien threat. They were determining the character of their species for generations to come. Admiral, Sarah said finally, we need to return to Earth immediately. This decision affects every human being in the galaxy. It should be made by representatives of all our colonies, not by a military task force. Morrison nodded grimly. Agreed. Captain Chen, you'll accompany my task force back to Earth Command. And these Watchers, will they respect our need for time to consider their proposal? We will wait, the Watcher voice confirmed. But not indefinitely. The countdown continues. When it reaches 0, we will know the exact arrival time of the Devourers. After that point, all of our resources must focus on preparation, regardless of humanity's choice. As the combined task force turned toward home, carrying news that would change human civilization forever, the crew of the Defiance couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed more than just an arbitrary boundary. They had stepped into a larger universe where humanity's survival depended, not just on their technology or military might, but on their willingness to evolve beyond everything they thought they knew about themselves. The journey home would take 6 days. 6 days to prepare arguments that would determine whether humanity faced its greatest challenge as transformed beings, independent mortals, or something entirely new. The edge of human space had revealed itself to be not an ending, but a beginning. Earth Command headquarters buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from every human colony, military commanders from across the galaxy, and the greatest scientific minds of the species had gathered for the most important meeting in human history. The data from the Defiance had been analyzed, verified, and distributed to every leader. Captain Chen stood before the assembly, having just finished her formal report. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Director General Martinez, the highest civilian authority in human space, spoke. Captain, you're asking us to believe that not only do ancient aliens exist, but that our galaxy faces complete destruction within 50 years. The implications are staggering. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's most respected astrophysicist, raised her hand. I've reviewed the mathematical proofs and astronomical data provided by these Watchers. The science is sound, but it's also centuries ahead of our current understanding. If this is genuine, it represents the greatest scientific discovery in human history. General Harrison from Mars Command leaned forward aggressively. And if it's an elaborate trap? We're being asked to fundamentally alter human civilization based on the word of beings who admit they've been transforming our people without consent. The debate that followed raged for hours. Some argued for accepting the Watchers' offer of transformation, believing that joining their collective consciousness was humanity's only chance of survival. Others insisted on maintaining independence, even if it meant facing the devourers with inferior technology. But it was Dr. Webb who presented the most compelling case for the third option. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout human history, our greatest achievements have come from collaboration between different perspectives. What the Watchers are offering isn't transformation or independence, but partnership. They need our creativity. We need their knowledge. Together, we might accomplish what neither could achieve alone. Admiral Morrison, who had been silent during most of the debate, finally stood. I've spent my career preparing for threats to human space. But this isn't about military tactics or colonial expansion. This is about what kind of species we choose to be. The Director General called for a preliminary vote. The results were closer than anyone expected. 40% for partnership, 35% for independence, and 25% for transformation. No clear consensus emerged. As the debate continued into the night, Captain Chen received an urgent message. The Watcher countdown had reached 12 hours. Soon they would confirm the Devourer's exact approach vector, and preparation would have to begin whether humanity had decided or not. She shared this information with the Assembly, and the mood shifted dramatically. The abstract debate suddenly became urgently real. "We need to make a decision now," Director General Martinez announced. "I'm calling for a final vote in 1 hour." During that final hour, something remarkable happened. The youngest representative present, 18-year-old Maya Patel from the frontier colony of New Bangalore, asked to address the Assembly. As the newest human settlement, her colony had the most to lose from either choice. "Respected leaders," she began, her voice clear and confident, "I've listened to all your arguments, and I think you're missing something important. You're debating whether to trust the Watchers, but the real question is whether we trust ourselves." The Assembly fell silent, giving the young woman their complete attention. "The Watchers say our creativity and adaptability make us unique, but if we choose transformation, we give up what makes us human. If we choose pure independence, we ignore the wisdom of beings who have survived for millennia. The partnership option is scary because it requires us to stay human, while working with intelligence we can't fully understand." She paused, looking around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. "But isn't that what humans do best? We've always succeeded by adapting to circumstances we couldn't control, by learning from others while staying true to ourselves. I vote for partnership, not because I trust the Watchers completely, but because I trust us to remain human no matter what happens." Her words struck something deep in the Assembly. One by one, representatives began changing their votes. The final tally was 68% for partnership, with the remainder split between the other options. Director General Martinez stood solemnly. "The decision is made. Humanity chooses partnership with the Watchers. Captain Chen, please communicate our decision." As Sarah activated the communication system, the Watcher voice filled the chamber immediately, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment. "Humanity has chosen wisely. Partnership will be difficult, requiring trust from both species, but it offers the greatest hope for survival." "What happens now?" Martinez asked. "Now we begin the most ambitious project in galactic history. We have 50 years to prepare defenses across multiple star systems, to develop weapons that can function on cosmic scales, and to create strategies for fighting an enemy that has never been successfully opposed." Dr. Webb stepped forward excitedly. "What kind of technologies are we talking about?" "Technologies that manipulate space and time, weapons that can channel the energy of entire stars, defensive systems that span light years. But more importantly, we must develop new ways of thinking, new approaches to problems that have stymied every other species." The Watcher continued. "The first phase begins immediately. Volunteer crews from each human colony will travel to our ring world for intensive training. They will learn to use our technologies while teaching us human methods of innovation and adaptation." "How many volunteers?" Admiral Morrison asked. "Initially, 10,000 of your best scientists, engineers, tacticians, and creative thinkers. They will return to human space as teachers, spreading the combined knowledge throughout your colonies." Over the following weeks, humanity mobilized with unprecedented efficiency. The most brilliant minds from every field volunteered for the training program. Captain Chen found herself selected as the military liaison, responsible for ensuring that human tactical thinking was integrated with Watcher strategic planning. The journey back to the ring world felt different this time. Instead of fear and uncertainty, the human volunteers carried hope and determination. They were embarking on the greatest collaborative effort in galactic history. As the Defiance and her escort ships approached the boundary again, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had reached the edge of their space and discovered that it wasn't an edge at all, but a gateway to something larger than they had ever imagined. The ring world welcomed them with displays of technology that seemed like magic. Structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Computers that thought at the speed of light and, most remarkably, gardens where the transformed crews of lost ships worked alongside Watcher beings to cultivate new forms of life. Captain Chen, one of the transformed humans, approached her. It was Commander Brooks from the survey ship Pioneer, reported lost 3 years earlier. He looked human but moved with an otherworldly grace. "Commander Brooks, are you still you?" He smiled with an expression that was both familiar and alien. "I'm more than I was, but also exactly who I always was. The transformation didn't erase my humanity. It expanded it. But Captain, the choice your species made is better. Partnership preserves what we were while adding what we could become." As Sarah watched human volunteers working alongside Watchers and transformed humans, learning technologies that would reshape their understanding of the universe, she realized that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had 50 years to save the galaxy, and for the first time since learning of the threat, she believed they might actually succeed. The edge of human space had become the foundation for something unprecedented, two species working as equals to face an enemy that had never known defeat. The Devourers were coming, but they would find more than just another galaxy to consume. They would find humanity, and humanity had never learned how to surrender. 47 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Watchers. The galaxy had been transformed into something unrecognizable, a vast network of defensive installations, communication relays, and collaborative research stations. Captain Chen, now Admiral Chen and 68 years old, stood on the command deck of the Synthesis, a ship that represented the best of both human and Watcher technology. The approaching enemy had been detected at the galaxy's edge 3 days ago. The Devourers were exactly as the Watchers had described, a vast fleet of vessels that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, consuming everything in their path with methodical precision. "Admiral," Commander Park reported from the communication station. Maya Patel, the young representative who had helped sway the partnership vote decades ago, was now one of Admiral Chen's most trusted officers. "All defensive networks are online. Human Watcher joint task forces are in position across 14 star systems." Admiral Chen nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the galaxy's defenses. Massive ring structures orbited key stars, ready to channel stellar energy into weapons that could crack planets. Space stations the size of moons hosted combined fleets of ships that moved like schools of fish, their formations guided by Watcher strategic thinking and human tactical innovation. Status report from the research stations? Dr. Webb's successor, Dr. Sarah Kim, looked up from her science station. At 35, she had been born after first contact and raised with access to both human and Watcher knowledge. "The quantum disruption weapons are fully charged. Theoretical models suggest they should be able to destabilize the Devourer's phase-shifting technology." "Should be isn't good enough," Admiral Chen replied. "What about the human innovations?" Dr. Kim smiled with the confidence of someone who had never known a universe without interspecies cooperation. "The Chaos Protocol is ready for deployment. Our unpredictability algorithms should prevent the Devourers from adapting to our strategies as quickly as they have with other species." The Chaos Protocol was humanity's greatest contribution to the defensive effort. While the Watchers excelled at long-term strategic planning, humans had developed tactics based on creative unpredictability. Instead of following logical patterns that the Devourers could analyze and counter, human commanders would make seemingly irrational decisions that nonetheless achieved strategic objectives. Admiral Chen, the familiar Watcher voice, spoke through the ship's communication system. "We are detecting the first wave of Devourer scouts. They are approaching the outer defensive perimeter." Through the viewscreen, space itself seemed to ripple as the enemy fleet became visible. The Devourer ships defied easy description, constantly shifting between dimensions, their forms seeming to exist in several realities simultaneously. They moved with predatory grace, clearly studying the galaxy's defenses before committing to full attack. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen. 47 years ago, we learned that we weren't alone in the universe. Today, we prove that we deserve our place in it. Commence Operation Stardance." Across the galaxy, the combined fleets began their carefully orchestrated chaos. Human ships darted between Watcher formations in patterns that seemed random, but were actually precisely calculated to confuse enemy targeting systems. Weapons fired not at optimal targets, but at positions that would force the Devourers into disadvantageous formations. The first engagement was unlike anything in recorded military history. When Devourer energy beams struck human ships, the vessels didn't simply explode or disintegrate. They fought back as their hulls were consumed, their crews activating backup systems that turned dying ships into massive bombs. The Devourers are adapting faster than projected, Commander Park reported with concern. They're learning from each engagement. Admiral Chen had expected this. Execute Protocol Heretic. Protocol Heretic was the most dangerous strategy they had developed. Instead of trying to prevent the Devourers from learning, the combined fleets would deliberately teach them false patterns. Ships would appear to follow logical tactical doctrines, while secretly preparing completely different attacks. The synthesis dove toward a massive Devourer vessel, its approach vector suggesting a standard frontal assault. The enemy ship moved to intercept, following patterns of behavior observed from consuming hundreds of other species. At the last moment, the synthesis split into dozens of smaller craft, each following wildly different flight paths while maintaining quantum entanglement with each other. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Their adaptation protocols couldn't process tactical decisions that seemed designed to fail, but somehow succeeded anyway. Direct hit on the primary Devourer vessel, Dr. Kim announced with excitement. Their dimensional phasing is destabilizing. But even as they celebrated small victories, the scope of the enemy became apparent. For every Devourer ship they destroyed, 10 more emerged from the space between dimensions. This was a force that had consumed entire galaxies, and they were only seeing the advanced scouts. Admiral, the Watcher voice carried a note of urgency. The main Devourer fleet is preparing to phase into normal space. Estimated numbers over 10 million vessels. Admiral Chen felt her heart sink. Even with all their preparations, facing 10 million enemy ships seemed impossible. But then she remembered something Maya Patel had said during the first debates. Humanity's strength lay in trusting themselves to remain human, no matter what happened. All ships. This is Admiral Chen. The Devourers are about to deploy their main fleet. They expect us to retreat, to minimize losses and prepare for a long war of attrition. Instead, we're going to do something they'll never expect. She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. These people had been born into a universe where humans and Watchers worked together, where impossible technologies were everyday tools, where creativity was valued as highly as logic. We're going to attack their main fleet directly, not because it's tactically sound, but because it's exactly what humans would do when faced with impossible odds. Commander Park's eyes widened. Admiral, that's suicide. Maybe, but it's human suicide, and that makes all the difference. The combined fleets received their orders with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. They were about to attempt something that violated every principle of military strategy. A direct assault on an overwhelmingly superior enemy force. As 10 million Devourer ships materialized in normal space, they found not a defensive network waiting for them, but the entire galactic fleet charging directly toward them with weapons firing and every human crew member screaming battle cries that echoed across quantum communication channels. The Devourers had consumed countless species, but they had never faced anything like this. For the first time in their million-year history of conquest, they hesitated. The moment of confusion was brief, but it was enough. Human ships smashed into their formations with reckless abandon, followed by Watcher vessels providing precision support. The battle became a three-dimensional chaos that no tactical computer could predict or model. Ships exploded, reformed, and attacked again. Weapons fired in patterns that seemed random, but somehow achieved devastating effectiveness. Admiral, Dr. Kim called out over the sound of alarms. The Devourers are withdrawing. They're pulling back to the galaxy's edge. Admiral Chen couldn't quite believe it. Confirm that report. Confirmed. The main Devourer fleet is retreating. They're afraid of us. Through the tactical display, they watched as the most successful conquest force in galactic history fled from a species that should have been easy prey. The Devourers had learned to adapt to any strategy, but they couldn't adapt to strategies that made no logical sense. Admiral Chen, the Watcher voice carried a note of wonder. In all our observations of the Devourers, they have never retreated from any engagement. Your species has achieved something unprecedented. As the immediate threat receded, Admiral Chen realized that humanity had done more than just win a battle. They had proven that the galaxy could be defended, that the Devourers were not invincible, and that the partnership between species could create something neither could achieve alone. The edge of human space had become the edge of devourer space, and they had chosen not to cross it. For the first time in cosmic history, the unstoppable force had met an immovable object and discovered that sometimes the object moves anyway just to be contrary. Humanity had reached the stars, found the boundaries of their small corner of the galaxy, and decided that boundaries were really just suggestions. The universe was about to learn that when humans said this far and no farther, they meant it absolutely.